Have you ever had a disagreement with someone that just kept getting worse? A fight between two people that started small, but festered with bitterness and resentment until it tore a whole family apart? Now imagine that family was a country. Today, we are talking about the moment America went to war with itself. This is the story of the American Civil War, a conflict so brutal, it claimed more American lives than every other war the nation has ever fought combined. And to understand it, you have to understand the one, single, poisonous issue that everything was built upon: slavery. By the mid-1800s, the United States wasn't really united. It was two different countries pretending to get along, held together by a thread. In the North, you had an industrial economy. Think factories churning out textiles and steel, bustling cities teeming with immigrants, railroads crisscrossing the land, connecting a dynamic, fast-paced world. Their system didn't depend on owning other human beings. The South was the opposite. Its entire world, its culture, its economy was built on one thing: cotton. And the engine that powered that world was the forced labor of millions of enslaved African Americans. The Southern argument was about states' rights, but the one right they were willing to die for was the right to own people as property. For decades, they tried to keep a fragile peace. Politicians would come up with flimsy compromises, like the Missouri Compromise, basically drawing lines on a map and saying slavery is okay here, but not there. But every time a new territory was added in the West, the same fight exploded all over again. Would it be a free state or a slave state? Each new state threatened to tip the delicate balance of power in Washington. The pressure cooker was getting hotter. Then came the people who decided they weren't going to be quiet anymore: the abolitionists. People like Frederick Douglass, a former slave whose powerful words exposed the hypocrisy of a nation that preached freedom while practicing slavery. And then there was John Brown, a radical abolitionist who believed the only way to end slavery was through violence. His raid on a federal armory at Harper's Ferry was a failure, but it terrified the South and turned him into a martyr in the North. The middle ground was disappearing. The final straw came in 1860. A lawyer from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln was elected president. Lincoln's new Republican Party had promised to stop the expansion of slavery. They didn't even say they'd end it where it already existed. But for the South, that was the end of the line. Lincoln won without being on the ballot in 10 Southern states. They realized they had lost their power in the Union forever. One by one, 11 Southern states did the unthinkable. They seceded from the Union and formed their own new nation, the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as their president. The country was officially broken. On April 12, 1861, Confederate cannons opened fire on Fort Sumter, a U.S. Army post in Charleston, South Carolina. The war was on. Both sides thought it would be over in a few months. Young men signed up for a grand adventure. They were horribly wrong. The first major battle at Bull Run was a chaotic, bloody disaster that proved this was going to be a long and brutal war. The conflict became a 4-year-long meat grinder. It was the first modern war, with the deadly accuracy of the rifle clashing with old-school tactics of marching in straight lines. The result was a scale of death the world had never seen. Battles with now legendary names like Antietam, the single bloodiest day in American history, left tens of thousands of casualties. In the middle of it all, Lincoln did something that changed the entire meaning of the war. After the Union victory at Antietam, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all enslaved people in the rebellious Confederate States were now free. This brilliant move turned the war from a political fight to save a country into a moral crusade to end slavery. It also allowed African American men to join the Union Army, and nearly 200,000 would serve with incredible bravery. The turning point of the war came in the summer of 1863 at a small town in Pennsylvania called Gettysburg. For 3 hellish days, the two armies clashed in the largest battle ever fought in North America. The Confederate charge on the final day, known as Pickett's Charge, was a suicidal act of bravery that was utterly crushed. The Confederacy would never be that strong again. The Union Army, led by the relentless General Ulysses S. Grant, slowly and systematically crushed the South. General William Tecumseh Sherman marched his army through Georgia, burning and destroying everything in a campaign of total war designed to break the South's will to fight. Finally, on April 9th, 1865, at a small courthouse in Appomattox, Virginia, the great Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Grant. The war was over. The Union had been saved. But the story doesn't end there. Just 5 days later, while watching a play, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. The one man with the vision and the grace to heal the nation's wounds was gone. The period after the war, called Reconstruction, was a promise to remake the nation and secure the rights of the newly freed African Americans. But it was a promise that was ultimately broken by political infighting, exhaustion, and a violent backlash from white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan. In the end, the Civil War was more than just a series of battles. It was a brutal, bloody fire that burned away the nation's original sin. It answered the question of whether a country founded on the idea that all men are created equal could survive while holding millions of them in chains. The answer was no. And the echoes of that conflict, the questions about freedom, equality, and what it truly means to be a nation, are still being debated to this very day.